expect second quarter, what to expect third quarter, what to expect. So there must be a solution to this problem. And even if the bill
is right now isn't working,
but at least it offers a platform upon which now we can improve and maybe give suggestions around how that problem can be solved. So that as a governor, you are aware of what sort of resources you're going to have throughout the entire year, when they are going to come, and therefore you can be able to engage some suppliers to be able to provide the services necessary and at the right time. Because also if you tell them early and you're not able to pay them, then you're also putting people in a very awkward situation. And I must say, we've had many situations, including where people have actually died waiting for money. You know, you provided for these government cards, they say they will not pay. Sometimes a commitment has already been done by the county, and eventually it has brought misery. Now, unfortunately for the county, the suppliers are just people around your town. So, you know, when you've said, build this hospital, and then finally you're not able to pay, you wake up to see this man every day in the morning. Some of them go into depression. Some of them have their loans recalled and so on. So I think we must be able to look at this whole thing and also the impact it has on the ground. So I think the bill, to me, is a good platform upon which now we can engage. And I think it is important for counties to be given what it takes. Then we can put the governors to task when they are not able to deliver. But when half the time they are engaging in, walking into this office or the other one, try to beg for money, hoping it will come tomorrow or the other day. And actually, when county resources are being disbursed, it should not be news. It should be normal. This is a normal thing happening. It shouldn't be breaking news anywhere because it's part of a normal process that should be there, But when now it is made to be such a big thing, then it becomes difficult for them to plan.
Do you think it's actually an issue of lack of funds? Because what are we dealing with at the moment? And maybe not as bad previously with what we face today. That we know that funds coming in first charge is the payment of, and this is the reality within which the existence is, that the first charge of funds received, the Treasury, goes towards loan repayment. And whatever is left, essentially, is what every other commitment for government then will take up. All of everything, counties, everything else will take up that remaining money. Do you think that it is not for lack of commitment to have this done, or it's not for lack of support for devolution, but it's for lack of actual available resources to put behind this? Do you think so?
I wouldn't think so. Okay, it's true, there will always be constraint of funds. But when the law clearly tells you that this belongs to this level of government, the constraint should be to the extent of what is allocated to you, what the law allocates you. But you cannot take even that which belongs to devolution and use it. Then I think more importantly is the appetite for government to take up loans both locally and outside. And the more they take, the more they have to be repaying, which means the money available for shareable revenue gets smaller by the day, because that's going to be the first charge at any one time. And I think it is for this reason in the Constitution we said that there will be Parliament and there will be Senate. Senate will put, the county governments on check, which they are doing, but I think much more still can be done. And the National Assembly was to do the same with the executive. So, for example, the debt ceiling, when we keep, from 8 to 9 to 10 to 11, now we are going on a floating rate. And sometimes, what the government, and this is true to any government, they manipulate numbers to show that growth is at this level, this has improved, therefore we can even borrow
GDP
more.
is this much, so
this much, and it is their numbers. And I think also it's good to say that we have had situations where even the multilateral lenders, have manipulated numbers when they want to give you money. They come and say, we are projecting that your economy will grow at this rate in the next 5 years, you'll be able to do this, so therefore you qualify for this. And you end up piling debt upon debt upon debt. So actually, the rising debt in Kenya is a major threat to devolution, because you'll only get what remains after they have repaid. Yet, and that's now where we would really call upon institutions like Parliament and Senate to play their rightful role. Because when you have a floating ceiling, then it means you really have no ceiling. you know. And I think the bigger problem is sometimes relying on these institutions, and their work is to give money, tie you, make sure you meet certain conditions, and whenever they require a country to be a mouthpiece for them, they can tell you, say something about Israel, say something about this other one, you know, condemn this one. You know, you lose your sovereignty completely. And I think Kenya is a classic example of that. We so far, our grading has really gone down. You know, just a few years we were at a different level. So before long, we are also looking at this issue of debt as being a threat, not just to the country at large, but also to devolution, because it will continue to suppress the resources available, and eventually health and water and everything else will be consumed.
You know, the story of devolution is an interesting one, especially when you look at the concept of it and the idea of it. But our lived reality in this country takes the pendulum to a completely different side altogether. Now, there are those who argue that one of the things that we actually devolved was corruption and mismanagement of public resources. My reference point here is what you refer to as own source revenue. In the time that you were governor and in the time when you would converse with other governors during your COGs, would you say you know the number of people or the number of governors who had actually come up with a blueprint of what it is that their own source revenue capacity was before talk about what they collected? Because, for instance, in Nairobi, we keep hearing of so-and-so comes up, collected this billion, so-and-so this billion, we are thinking we will collect this billion. But what exactly is the capacity? What exactly can you collect? So that when you talk about, for instance, your 3.5 billion, you say, our anticipation was 5, but we fell short. So we hope that by this time we'll get here. I ask this because if counties are to be self-reliant, there has to be a plan that shows that your own source revenue can get to a point where it can actually run the county. And in the absence of that, all these figures that we hear county governors telling us about are as good as smoke because it's just figures. Yes. Do you think, and did you come across fellow governors who had actually done the due diligence so that they could tell you, this is how we've planned to do this?
Okay. First, it's good to agree, just like in any other institution in the country, corruption is there. And I think corruption exists at all levels. But the thing to deal with corruption is just to create systems whereby it does not depend on what you want. If I come to pay for my parking meter, for, you know, when I put my vehicle there, you know, it's 50 bob, I should pay on the app and there's no conversation. But the absence of systems allows conversations, mambo ya wazee, and other sort of discussions. So the thing is to try and automate everything. And I want to give my example. When I served in Nakuru, we tried to automate all our hospitals. So if you go there and you needed to pay some money for a laboratory or whatever, everything was an M-Pesa. And I want to say that our revenues went up by nearly 300%, just on account of that, automation. Because you remove any conversation between the person who's supposed to pay and the one who is receiving. Secondly is that we have CRA, Commissioner of Revenue Authority, and their work is to help us to come up with a formula for sharing revenue between national and county, but they also have a bigger role in helping us to improve our collection and methodology and also the structures we put therein. And for Nakuru, we had worked with them to come up with a revenue board, which is essentially just like a KRA but at the county level. You separate it because what happens is you go to a market, these women plead with you, oh, we don't want to pay here, there's COVID, there's all this, you give into that. You go here, the church comes and says that, oh, we are building this very big church, you tell your people, we don't want to pay this. So as a politician, you are bound to feel, you know, like you've been called to help them. But when you separate that and make KRA an independent body that is able to run now at the county level, then the collections will definitely get well. So we put all those structures. So the solution to corruption-related issues is put structures. And those who go outside the structure, there must be a clear system of punishment. If it means repaying or you sack them, get them out of the system, then the others will learn how it should be done. And then you monitor it on a day-to-day basis. And the good thing is that with modern technology, Just like you can monitor your bank account, you can know your collections per day. So if the graph suddenly goes down, then you want to know what is happening at that particular time. And at the time when he left, even including COVID time, our revenues actually still went up. So I'm just trying to say systems is what you put.
So when you had this conversation with CRA, what did they anticipate was the amount of money Nakuru County could raise if they did everything possible and they were collecting everything?
The projections would be at around 5 billion.
So I wasn't far off.
Factors, all factors held constant, including things like pandemic that you could not anticipate, including, sometimes also we have these waivers, people don't pay, like for this housing, we are told that they're not going to pay for the licenses and all those other issues. But there are very many lines that the counties can use if they perfect collection. But I think sometimes we've been so focused on demanding from national government that we also forget that we also have a role. Where the national government is getting, we also can get. And people are willing to pay, especially when they think that money has a direct impact in their lives.
But Excellency, I agree with you completely. But you see, there's this little thing of collection and systems and automation. Growth. Because that's 5 now. How then do we get it to that point where, as we say, we can actually run our own affairs? Because that is supposed to be the goal, isn't it?
Yes, for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that if you are, say, for instance, like the state of California, you have more money than this entire continent, and you can actually give the national government money. So what is it that counties can do to do that?
I think the first one is creating of structures and separation of revenue collection from the county itself. So you get this revenue board appoint people who have, decency in collection so that they don't go negotiating behind the back, and you put systems and give them targets. So we want 5 billion. So if you get 4.2, then you'll have to explain how we got there. The next year you give a 10% increment and so on. However, it's also good to say that all counties are not the same. There are counties that are well endowed, the Mombasas, the Nakurus, the Nairobi, but there are other counties that, they don't have big hotels to charge, they don't have an industrial base, they don't have a broad urban sort of place where they can get this. So we don't have a one-size-fits-all kind of approach to this. So to those ones, maybe minerals, mining would now be the big thing. Yeah. So I think the point is that each county now should be able to have, this is what it takes for us to be able to achieve that. And then, again, going back to devolution, if, for example, tourism is devolved, why would you have a national park like Nakuru National Park under the national government when tourism is devolved? Now, those are the issues that once you transfer such an institution, is run by the county, they can get KWS to do the management and get a management fee. But the resources arising from that belong to the people of that place. Same, just like Masai Mara and all the other places. And the counties now would be self-sufficient. And when they fall short, then the Minister for Devolution should do the mentorship to know what are the issues, what capacity building do you need to do, so that now we can be able to up our game.
Do you think 5 years is enough time for a governor to at least begin to see the fruits of the mandate and the things that they've taken? I asked the same question of even the presidency. Is 5 years enough? Because there are those who would say it's too long. Because if you have someone who is bent on doing everything they shouldn't do, then 5 years is too long. But looking at the practicality of it, is 5 years really adequate?
Yes. I think 5 years is enough for the takeoff. You're on the runway and you've taken off. The rest will be now perfection of what you started. So if you have not laid a foundation in health, in agriculture, in water, in revenue collection, then the next 5 years really you would be, grouping in the dark. So you've laid the foundation, and just to be precise, even if you look at past situations, including even at the national government, when Kibaki said that he would give free primary education, when he got into office, the following January, all the kids, even with no uniform, no shoes, they were told to report to the school nearby.
Yes.
And we found money to take there. So sometimes it is a will, the political will to make sure that things happen. We don't need 20 years. 20 years, really, or whatever. The point is you have a vision and you're ready to follow it through. And people buy into that. So when you took our kids to school in the year 2002, They learned and they finished up to secondary. I think some 5 years ago is when you had the first graduates of that free primary education. And you had the Maruges, people in their 80s going back to school because the vision was so captivating and people bought it. So I think it's also good to say that when we go out on campaign and tell people that I am going to deliver this, people take you serious.
Sure.
So there are people who voted, like in that case, because my child will go to school for free.
Yeah.
So also, when we say that, but later it doesn't happen, then the public feels cheated. Let down. Because you said it and we took you, for that one point, whatever it is, that's why I voted for you. So when it doesn't happen, then we have questions.
Do you think the person in the agent of devolution matters? Agent of devolution, in this case, a county governor. Do you think the character of that individual matters when it comes to fulfilling certain things? I'll give an example. You talk about funds being at a certain number, under governor X, county X. If we look at those funds dropping to whatever in terms of revenue over the next certain period, do you think that all of this can come back to the person that sits in that position to command certain development? Does it matter who it is, as opposed to that there is a person there?
Yeah, I think first, leadership is everything. In a company, in a school, in a government institution, leadership is everything. And that's why we always talk about the first 100 days. And even if we got a new MD in a company, for the first 100 days, everybody wants to see how do you dress, what time do you come, how do you write your memos, what do you do, so that they can take the cue and follow it, So likewise, at the county level, the tempo is set at the top. If you show zero tolerance to corruption, if you're very keen on targets, and when they don't meet targets, you want to call the person responsible and ask them why they're not able to do it. If they say they don't have a vehicle or whatever software to do it, you're able to provide, then you get to see results. And integrity, as we all know, is individual, it's very specific. So it is true that is there. But also we need to do much more in terms of training. At the national level, we have Kenya School of Government. In Kabete. Maybe it's time to think about School of Government in the context of devolution.
Yeah.
Because this guy has come, maybe he was a businessman, maybe he was a journalist, or he was doing something else. Now, you have made him an executive. He has never run any executive job. The issue of HR, the issue of finance, accounting, PR, he doesn't know. So, and this also is true of MCAs, so that they can understand their role. Because sometimes we may end up condemning people, yet we've not prepared them for the job. And the truth is, especially when it comes to our campaign period, the process of campaigning has nothing to do with a real interview as you would really expect it for the job ahead of you. It's more to do with party alignments, what you gave us, emotions and all that. But finally, at the end of that job is, here is 10 billion, this is what we want you to do, you have to manage health. You're managing very senior people. And maybe last